Right, what is, come on then, Kassan, hit me with one of yours. Are you going to do the same? I notice you already set the meta. You're going to start with a more chill take, right?
The thing is, like, I'm not gonna go after teams right now. I went to a different direction for this episode.
Okay.
And the first one
To be fair, that is because most of your takes are like, fire everyone. Like, it's true. Like, you have a lot of
They deserve it. They deserve it. Like, you see what happened to EG and their, Sean's favorite take is just ridiculous. Anyway, the first one is directed more of to TOs, I guess.
Okay.
And the major. Like, for example, like, let's put it like this. Swiss systems are ruining majors when it comes to, the greatness of the playoffs, for example, right? We have these weird seedings, we have these weird matchups in the first round, second round, third round, whatever, and I think now is the time to let go of them. Like, the Swiss system should not be used anymore in any kind of event. We have the GSL right now that hasn't been used. I think it's a very valid system that can go back. We have other options too, but people are very familiar with GSL. So we can use 4 groups of 4 teams, proper seeding. If you win twice in a best of 3, you get through the playoffs. If you lose twice, you're out. It's very, effective system to be used on the majors, and you can get a much stronger playoffs in the arenas, that you can get more legendary matches. We can get like more. In the last 2 years, what was the most legendary match? It was Navi and FaZe in Cologne, right? And I don't remember any other.
Probably.
It's like, that's the only memorable match. Especially like, let's count the majors too. I can't remember anything.
I actually think, by the way, in general, if you think about the era of the Swiss systems, a lot of the playoffs are a bit ropey, like you're saying.
Yeah, it was fine when they introduced it, like something fresh, something new. They botched it with seedings and the round matchups, and now it just sticks. It's just still there. Like 5 years later, it's still there. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be used in Paris too. But there is absolutely no need. We have 16 teams in the first stage. We have 16 teams in the second stage. Just get the proper seeding based on the rankings. Valve started doing their own regional rankings and all that shit that it's kind of in a phase 1. And if they do it properly, they can make their own seedings and make their own groups. GSL system. We have the best 8 teams in the actual playoffs and get some legendary matches on majors. That's for one. But also the other TOs can take over too.
All right, yeah, I'll take this first because I know Thorin's going to have a lot of ideas about formats and how that all works. I would say the main thing, I would probably favor GSL also. In fact, I think it's hard for me to even come up with the cases to stick with Swiss over GSL. The main thing that's concerning about GSL is always just, when is there a group of death, and then there's somehow 3 teams that are in one group, and it feels like they should have been spread out a little bit more evenly. But that to me is just kind of more of a seeding issue. If you can have teams that we think are ranked 1 through 8 in 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 or whatever, just in 4 different groups, then it shouldn't be a big deal. And so I think that Swiss has so consistently given us very odd playoffs. I think we got pretty lucky actually at Antwerp, for example, that we got the Navi FaZe final that we so desperately wanted. But you kind of look at some of the teams that also made it through, and I don't know if you would have necessarily said that those were the
Copenhagen Flames is the obvious one, right?
Yeah. I don't know if teams 6, 7, and 8 necessarily were the best always. So that's where it's always concerning. But yeah, I think GSL is really good, and they should really consider it again. And I think I love the fact that you bring up just the way that they're seeding or they're like ranking teams now, because I think you could probably use that if it's effective enough to just seed them into the GSL itself.
Okay. Right, I've got a few takes, like you said, on this one. First of all, I'll just do my role as the historian. The key part here that you have to understand is how we ended up in this mess, as to where people thought Swiss was the best format, is because it stupidly did seem better if you know the format we had before. So here's what people need to remember, right? The Swiss system, the first major to use it, was actually the one that Astralis won. It was the E-League Atlanta Major. Now, if you remember, the major prior to that, if you might remember, was my first back with ESL, it was ESL1 Cologne. Now, at ESL1 Cologne, famously, because they still had the fucked scenario where we're not allowed real seeding, they had a GSL group, but it was a group of death. You remember, it was the one that had SK Gaming, Fnatic, fucking G2. By the way, those were like 3 of the top 5 teams in the world. And then the 4th team was FaZe, which didn't have Carrigan yet, but they still had all those like Raid and fucking like Starplay. So that was considered like a totally egregious group. But what people forget was, so Swiss, the best thing about Swiss as a selling point was, you can't have a group like that because you can play anyone in the tournament. And, you know, people thought seeding won't matter because, you know, you'll figure it out by playing everyone and winning and losing. And also, the last thing to add is this. One thing they never ever tried at the majors was full best of 3 GSL group. It used to be BO1 until the elimination or the progression match, if you remember. Well, that was the problem. Like, if people remember before Luminosity got like FNX and Tackle and became the top team, they used to always make top 8 at the majors and then just lose the match immediately. That's because they would just win the 2 BO1s. They would just essentially, look, I'm not hating on them. They did a great job. They probably scouted the opponent, figured out what map. Like, we only have to be good on one map. Essentially, we only have to get like 4 or 5 key gun rounds that you win. You get through. Like, essentially, the problem is, I actually think if we knew what we knew now, you wouldn't do this whole Swiss adventure. You would just make it best of 3s in the GSLs. Because I'll give you the example. I do think GSL group stages at the moment get a bad name because of bloody Blast doing these groups. Because Blast always do them after the bloody player break. So it makes the matches look like these aren't that great. There's all upsets all over the place. Like, because the first tournament, like, I want to see this at a major, like at the end of the season where people know. Because I think actually upsets, this is the key point to make. You know, when someone gets a BO1 upset, it happens at that major, in a Swiss, you feel like, A, why were they playing that team? And then B, it's a BO1. Like, if it's a BO3, even if you get the GSL thing that happened at Blast, like an opening game, someone loses in a shocking fashion, that result feels more legit though, because you knew who you were playing and you probably prepped for them specifically. And props, that is what I want an underdog to do. If you can go on LAN, by the way, and beat like Vitality or so, or Heroic in a best of 3 on LAN, you probably deserve that upset. Those are the upsets I want in Counter-Strike. I even said this about that major. If FaZe had actually lost 3 full best of 3s, I would have complained a lot less. Even if it had been to Cloud9 and not, you know, the top teams they're having to face. But that's the problem. The problem I think is we'd skipped out just going to what essentially everyone wants now, which is just GSL groups of 4 teams. You know who you play in opening match. It's a best of 3. As Kassad said, the best part about the format is you can describe it in like 2 sentences. It's like win 2 best of 3, you're through. Lose 2, you're out. Boom. Problem, you know at all times where you are. And then also, look, to be fair, in Swiss, you didn't do this, but the other good thing about GSL group is no one's throwing a game ever. You know what I mean? You just try and win. Like, the format encourages you to try and win every match. Like, you never throw back. You can't play God with someone else's tournament because you're still alive in the tournament. It's not like one of those round robins where you can just not try, but actually, I need you to try so I can win this game. Like, there's none of those shenanigans. I agree. The reason why the GSL one, best of 3, is the best one to go to, moving from Swiss, is because it's so simple to understand. It's the best compromise, and crucially, I actually think players would agree with me. If you actually can lose 2 full best of 3s in a reasonably seeded group, you have to just accept you lost. You can't still be complaining then, like, you're not supposed to win every match. The problem I have with the Swiss current setup is, a million teams can complain and they're justified. Like, the joke I even made at the last major that a lot of people missed was, the Swiss system can even be really unfair to the teams that win. Like, I'll win a match and then I end up playing in like a 1-1 match. I play like FaZe. It's like, how am I? But I won. Like, don't I get a reward for winning? Like, nope. In this case, the random block says you get fucked. Now, everyone laughs if I beat FaZe. But what if FaZe beats me? Why am I playing them second if I'm like Vitality or Cloud9 or something? Like, that's unfair to me. So, to me, the best detail about it is simple to understand, eliminates a lot of the problems, and crucially, you can just accept you lost. At that point, you start wondering about what you did wrong, not the bloody system of the tournament, you know.
Yeah. I mean, best of 1s are terrible. Like, we are in a 2023 right now. We still have best of 1s. Like, it makes no sense. Just literally makes no sense. We have the schedule. We have the 2 weeks for the majors. We have this long, tournaments. Why the hell are we playing best of 1s? It's just why, especially on the major. Like I said before, if it was GSL best of 1, 2 best of 1, you were in. Like, it was just so stupid. But in a full best of 3, it would make more sense. Like you said, the opponents, the seeding is correct. Like, you have your chances. If you lose twice, you definitely shouldn't be there, hoping for the playoffs. If you win twice, you're just through, and we get a decent playoffs. Like you also said, there is no calculating. I'm gonna finish 3rd so I can face the second team, or I'm gonna go 4th to just face this one and avoid this type of bracket. This is just nonsense. It's time to move on. That's the whole point.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.